Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. I trust and hope you're doing well. I'm doing well, and so I come to you today hoping to give you some good information to go back into society with as things open up. But this week, the highlight of my week has been the Olympics. When I look at the swiftness with which these Olympics do their sport, the energy with which they move, the focus with which they go for the ultimate, which is the gold medal. I wonder if we put the same effort into our goals, our dreams, our relationships, wouldn't we have something good, even better than gold? I don't know about you, but when I watch them, I feel like I can run. I can go into the next Olympics. But that's how I feel. I don't know what the Olympics brings to you as you watch people and as we cheer for each other. For me, I cheered for Ghana, I cheered for Canada, and the Canadian women haven't failed us. They brought home the gold in so many ways. And what about our boy, Andre? Congratulations to all our Canadians. Congratulations to all our Ghanaians who put their best foot forward. Congratulations to all the Olympians who worked for years to perfect their work. They're an example to me to not let difficulties stop me, but to keep focusing and keep looking for the people that I can work with to make everything that I want to do a success. So today we're thinking about you and your success and going back to life after COVID. And so we went back to our favorite guest who helps us deal with all these ups and downs of life. And it's none other than Prof. Magnus Mfoafo McCarthy, who we have decided to travel our mental health journeys with, any ups and downs with, so that we can understand how to take the next step and the next step and the next step. Welcome, sir. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, and thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I am grateful to you for deciding to walk this journey with us so that we can understand life a little better. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to go straight into why we're here today. We're here today with everything opening up to figure out how we're going to manage, how we're going to deal, and how we're going to live this life after COVID. It's been stressful enough. So my first question is, how do we adjust to this new normal without getting all frazzled and stuff? How do we adjust?
Thank you. I would say, as human beings, there is something about us that is really unique in terms of our ability to adapt
Mhm.
in the midst of difficulties. So let's put it this way. I believe when COVID started,
Mhm.
there was the lockdown where we're supposed to stay in our homes and not to interact. Much as it was quite an inconvenience, at least we somewhat adjusted to it.
Mhm.
So I think that adjusting to the new normal, it's also going to work out quite well. So let's put it this way. Now, going back, adjusting to the new normal will be this idea of yes, we have COVID at the back of our minds.
Mhm.
It's gradually going to phase or either phase out, or we may have to learn to live with it. And
Mhm.
learning to live with it would be this idea of maybe trying to maintain the distancing, the personal hygiene, and all those things. Because right now, based on information that we are hearing, we are supposed to continue wearing our masks because of the
Mhm.
new variant that is out there, the Delta variant. Wearing of masks, despite majority of us, most of us, having the being vaccinated. Taking the vaccine, right? Nevertheless, we need to take that precautionary measure.
Mhm.
So I think gradually the new normal will really require we being sensitive to those things. But Having said that, I also want to state also that adjusting to the new normal may take some time,
Mm-hmm.
and it calls for some form of inconvenience. I
Mm-hmm.
remember somebody asked me this question the other day, and I was talking about even having to go back to the office and
Mm-hmm.
interacting with your colleagues, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
always going to be conscious of
Yes.
even the touching piece. When somebody wants to shake your hand, somebody wants to hug you, somebody wants opens the door, and all those things. You go to, let's say, the gathering. I mean, where do you? I mean, even the canteen, where you'd have
Right.
to sit for lunchtime, you'd have to sit with your colleagues and interact and all those things. You become more conscious of what you do, cleaning after yourself and ensuring that you don't really do anything that would that would create any problems.
Yes.
How would people react while maybe in a group setting you sneeze? You
Mm-hmm.
know, people are going to react negatively to it. So
Yes.
right now there's going to be a new normal, though we don't know the extent to which this new normal is going to be. But I believe that we are resilient enough to adjust and
Mm-hmm.
be able to cope with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you said we're resilient. Lord knows we had never seen anything like we saw when COVID began. I mean, it was rough having to stay inside and being cooped up and all of that. But by God's grace and by all of us taking the precautionary measures that we took, while some didn't make it, some did. And so, like you said, the resiliency will see us through the next phase. But I think, like you said, I think we're all trying to, I've already seen this, we're all trying to do the best we can. For example, the condo in which I live, or in other places that I've been, I see that people will take a step back and let you be the only one that rides the elevator and all of that. Or sometimes when you get in and you're not wearing your mask, I see people will step out. So I think we kind of get the message, and we will all do the best we can to help each other out. This is not just about us. It is about everybody around us. And so we have to do the best we can. My next question is, how do we manage the expectation and assumptions of ourselves and others? How do we know that this is what I'm supposed to do? This is not what I'm supposed to do without offending? Because, like you said, when we go back to work or once we're all out, somebody may want to shake your hand, somebody may want to hug you, and all of that. How do we deal with all of that without offending each other or without somebody feel like they have leprosy? You know how before, when you had leprosy, it's like this is the end of you. How do we manage that and not cause each other more harm than we already have? Because we're all struggling mentally and emotionally somehow.
Yeah, thank you. Usually, what I say is life is such that no matter how you cut it, would always offend somebody. I
Mm,
mean, COVID aside, no matter how you cut it, the way you
right.
smile, the way you walk, the way you interact, people may not like it, right? It's not everybody who's going to like you. However, talking about COVID, I think it's a matter of us being more sensitive
Mm-hmm.
to what goes on around us and
Yeah.
how we interact with others. So let me use a few examples. The other day, I was sharing with a few friends and I was telling them, for about a year and a half now, I have not shaken the hands of anyone. Not intentional, but because of the COVID policies that have been put in place and other things, the hugs and other things. So it depends on one's comfort level. You go to
Mm-hmm.
places where somebody reaches out to shake your hand. You can either decide to shake their hand, or maybe tell them that try and find a way of letting them know that, hey, based on the COVID policy, you've decided perhaps not to do that. And these
Right.
days, at least, we are fortunate enough. We have a way of shaking hands by using our elbow, to touch
Right.
both of other people, and that works out well. So you can say, well, I would opt for the elbow thing than the handshake until perhaps further notice. So it's a matter of maybe being conscious of other people. There are a lot
Mm-hmm.
of things that we're going to do that may offend others, right?
Right.
So, for instance, some people would say in a gathering, meeting with friends and other things, they may decide to wear masks. Others will say, well, I've taken my 2 jabs. So if I've taken it, why should I worry about, wearing masks and those things? And it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to have such people in your midst, but at least be able to share with them and let them know, well, this is the stance that you've taken. And until further notice or until information is provided that we can move around without wearing masks, you are not going to do that. So I think it's a preference of the individual and also being honest and open with others. And also, I would really want to say that in the midst of all that is going on, there seem to be a number of controversies. Be it, I don't know how to call it. People call it fake news, or people call it alternative news. Where people feel this COVID thing is a hoax, where others also believe in it, right? So you may come into contact with all these people, those who believe in it and those who don't believe in it. But I don't think it's our responsibility to tell those who do not believe in COVID that they have to believe in it. We all have the right to believe in what we believe, right? But at least we need to ensure that we respect other people's views in the midst of all this, right? Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So in other words, what we're saying is that we should communicate. Because I find that, I don't know about you, but some of us, it seems we've been raised to not be able to speak exactly what we feel. So even when, like you're saying, for example, I believe in COVID, you don't believe in COVID. Now you're talking to me, or maybe I don't believe in COVID, somebody else does, and the person is talking to me. Because of my upbringing of not being able to speak up about what I believe in and what I don't believe in, then I keep quiet and take it, which then causes me an inner turmoil. So for some of us that are that way, how do we deal with this? I mean, it's easy for people to tell you, open up, speak up. It's easy. But when you haven't been raised to speak up, in these circumstances where our health is at stake, our mental health is at stake, our peace of mind is at stake, how do people like that learn to speak and to say, you know what I mean? How do we ask for that space to be able to function within what our belief is?
Yeah, I think we need to be a bit proactive in this. You did talk about a lot of us being raised not to be able to articulate, what's going on in our minds or how we feel about certain issues because of the fear of offending others.
Yes.
Now, I would think we need to also look at it this way, that this is a matter of life and death. You either keep quiet and suffer in silence and you offend others, and if you're not very careful, it may impact you negatively. Or ask yourself, is it really appropriate for me to let others know how I feel? So let's say you find yourself in an environment where you know that you need to wear a mask, and your colleagues and other things are not wearing masks. Does that mean you're also going to refuse? You're not also not going to wear the mask because you don't want to offend others? So I think we need to look at it this way. If you look at it in terms of life and death, you may want to take the necessary precaution. And it's really important, right? So we live in a world where no matter what you do, people are going to talk about it. People are going to take offense, And at the end of the day, at this stage, it has to be about we protecting ourselves, we protecting our families, and also our loved ones, And this reminds me of the donkey story. I don't know if you remember the donkey story, where this idea of whatsoever you do, people are going to talk about it. Right. So the man, the son, and a donkey make traveling to a village. And on the way, initially, I think it was a man who was sitting on it because he's old, and people started complaining, and then he put a sign on it, and then people started complaining, and then eventually both of them were walking beside the donkey. People were talking about it. Eventually both of them sat on it, complaining. So no matter how you cut it in this world, people are going to find fault. But what I believe in is we are in a stage, an age, or a period where it's not about what others think, but what you believe in and what you think is right for you and your family.
Wow. I like that. It is not about what others think, but about your own safety, the safety of your family. So for those of us who have not been told to talk about it because we'll offend somebody, let's remember, as Prof said, that it is not about that person. It is about your own safety plus that of your family and friends, for that matter. So what are some of the expectations of being in the office after being away for so long? Lord knows, I don't know, but I know I enjoyed being at home and not having to go to work for some time. I realized that I was very exhausted. But after about 3 months, something was going wrong, right? But at the same time, we were not going through the grind of having to get up early, get ready, and go to work and all that. Now, this is coming back. Reality is coming back. And frankly, we all need the interaction. We all need the interaction. But how do we work ourselves into it so that we don't go into, because we've been relaxed for so long, we could do whatever we want. Even when we were working, things turned out that as long as we were achieving our goals for the office from virtually, it was fine. But that's not what it is. That is not reality. The reality we're going in is one-on-one, being in groups, having meetings and all that. So how do we prepare ourselves so that we don't feel that anxiety of meeting people, maybe people we don't like, maybe a boss you haven't had to deal with? These are all realities of the office. You know what I mean? How do we tame our inner anxiety so that we can function normally?
Thank you. Where do I start? I mean, as you were asking the question, there were tons of thoughts going through my head. How do we adjust? Like I said, I think we all have some form of resilience within us, right? Mm-hmm. And that ability to adapt, the adaptability, spirit. So irrespective of how things are and what have you, yes, definitely we may be able to adapt them. We may be able to, get through it. But what's going to happen is the early stages where people are really going to be struggling in the sense that you've been home. Some of us, we've been home for almost about 1.5 years. That's quite a long time, right? And going back is not going to be easy. It's not a matter of waking up one morning and saying, well, I'm going to go to work just like that. We need to psych ourselves and prepare ourselves as we go back to the office. And that would entail perhaps maybe in a week, the week before, trying to start thinking through, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Because right now we are going back with COVID at the back of our minds.
Yes.
We are going to interact with others with COVID at the back of our minds. So how are we going to go through this? And that is a challenge that we're going to have. And a lot of us, there's going to be that anxiety, as you rightly said. Anxiety with regard to, am I going to be meeting people who have already taken their vaccination? I mean, have all my colleagues taken the injection? Have they been vaccinated? We don't have the answers. No. All right. Are my colleagues? How do I know whether any of my colleagues are infected with the virus? We don't know that. So these are all fears that we're going to have at the back of our minds, and we'd have to adjust to it. How do we deal with it? And that is a challenge. And also, it's not going to be a situation where perhaps we're going to say we are going into an ensuite where we have our own offices, the bathroom and everything. We have to use the bathroom with our colleagues. So this time around, you go to the bathroom, you have to open a door. How do we do that? Wash your hands, you come out of the, so all these things are really going to be percolating in our minds. And it's going to be a challenge, honestly. But I believe that as we continue doing it, there's going to be an adjustment process. And it's going to take a period of time. With time, we're going to acclimatize, to the office environment and everything. And I believe perhaps maybe we can move on. But the early stages is not going to be easy.
No.
The other example that I was citing with somebody else is, for some of us, for about 1.5 years, our work has been, you wake up in the morning. There are times, if prior to COVID, you have to wake up at 6 o'clock, and start work, make sure you get to work by 9 o'clock. A lot of us may want to sleep in and maybe wake up around 8:30 and yet go to work in your virtual office and deliver, work as well as possible. But right now, you'd have to revert to the old lifestyle where you'd have to wake up early and go through traffic and all those challenges. It's going to be a bit difficult at the early stages, but eventually, I'm sure everything is going to work out well. The other thing that is also coming up is, in the world of COVID, with people working at home, There have been
Uh-huh.
some research, some studies that have come out to prove that people working at home are more productive than being in the office, right?
Okay.
So a lot of us are going to say, well, yeah, I wish I could stay home and I could work from home. But there is something we can't lose sight of. We are, as human beings,
Mm-hmm.
we have something about us that calls for interacting with others. None of us
Yes.
is an island.
Right.
So we need the human interaction. And
Mm-hmm.
I think going back really opens the door, gives us the opportunity to be able to interact with our colleagues, the ones
Mm-hmm.
we like, the ones we don't like, and the ones we want to avoid. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we need all these people to make the world what it is, So yeah.
Okay. So, you talked about how we're going to meet all these people, but we're all also going back with some knots in our stomach, right? So let me get real with you, Prof. As we go to work and come back, there are some people in the offices that you'd rather not see, you'd rather not deal with because of their attitude, maybe your attitude, but you've decided it's them, right? And now you're having to wake up and leave home about sometimes an hour and an hour and a half to get to work. And then the first person you see is this person that you'd rather not deal with. And you find that COVID did not change this person at all. This person has come back the same way, also with his or her own issues. What do you do? Because I can already see a meltdown at the door, Prof. This is real. How do you deal with this? How do you do this, Prof? Tell us.
Yeah, I don't know if I have the answers for this, but I think one thing that we need to be conscious of is the fact that, as we said earlier, that it's not everyone that will like us, number one. And also, as human beings, it's not everyone that we're going to like. But
Okay.
the question is, how do you relate? How do you create that mindset where you'd be able to interact and relate to people that you like and those you don't like?
Right.
So I think the responsibility is on us to
Okay.
create that mindset where we can interact with even those that we don't like. And I
Mm-hmm.
think earlier on, you did say something from the Bible. So let me just make reference to something from the Bible tells us that we should love our enemies and even pray for those who despitefully use us. And one thing that I realize is that as human beings, when you pray for your enemy and you meet your enemy somewhere, you
Mm-hmm.
are able to interact.
Mm-hmm.
There wouldn't be that animosity or that
Okay.
hatred or that anger and what have you, because you've been praying for that person. Your attitude towards that person will be different.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's our responsibility to ensure that we process these things and we work through it so that
Mm-hmm.
we don't allow those people to take the power away from us. Because the moment you see that person and you start having that negative attitude or negative reaction and what have you, it's you, the individual, that these things affect negatively. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not the other person. you know.
Okay.
And I remember a joke somebody shared a while ago. He says, while you are sitting down, you are sitting in your home or what have you, pouting
Mm-hmm.
and thinking negatively about others, your enemy is somewhere eating the jollofs and the chicken and other things, enjoying life. So why would we want to waste our enemy? Why would we want to waste our energy worrying and getting angry over others? I think it's important for us to do a little bit of reflecting here and say, well, it's not everyone who's going to like me anyway, but how can I relate and
Mm-hmm.
reach out to virtually everyone, despite
Mm-hmm.
the impressions about me.
Okay. So what you're saying is that, yes, as we go up and down every day, we could be the best that we can be, and not everybody will really like us. And how we cope with that is to look at ourselves, maybe look at our own shortcomings, maybe learn about forgiveness, learn to let go, to ease your own inner turmoil so that you can go on and be able to live, fully, no matter where you are. That's very good advice. That's very good advice, because sometimes I think we hold on to negative situations that sort of sets us back a bit. It puts up roadblocks
Mhm,
in our way.
mhm.
So then it says, how do we deal with anxieties and challenges of being back in the office? How do we deal with those? Like we said before, you will have to sit at a table with somebody. You may be going to the washroom. You may have to do a project with somebody. How do we deal so that we're not causing, sometimes tension, unnecessary tension that will make your day even harder and longer than is necessary?
Mhm. That's a very good question. Um, I think as human beings, talking about anxiety, we all deal with anxiety in one way or the other. We have different thresholds of
Mhm.
anxiety, some higher than others, and the coping mechanisms that we use in dealing with these things vary from one person to the other.
Mhm.
There are people who going back to the office would impact seriously, especially if you happen to fall within the borderline of being maybe diagnosed with some form of mental health issues and other things. And there are those who perhaps may not, but with COVID and other things, it may perhaps maybe create that situation where there will be that anxiety. But I think what has to happen is there are various ways of dealing with it. But let me put it this way, that if you feel that your level of anxiety is really high and you can't control it, it's really important that you seek a professional help, be it
Mhm.
counseling or maybe seeing a psychiatrist or something to help you through it. So an example of some of the anxieties that we may encounter or we may have to deal with has to do with the going back to the office, knowing that, like we said earlier, some of our colleagues not knowing whether they have the virus or not, whether anyone is going to infect you or not. We are human. A colleague may come to the office one day and because of maybe the air conditioning in place, maybe sneezing,
Mhm.
and you may wonder whether they have it. And also, we are made to understand that with the air condition, the air has to flow on a regular basis and that kind of thing. So there are all kinds of things that create some form of fear in us and makes us wonder whether what we are doing, I mean, where we're going, is really a healthy environment for us.
Mhm.
But what is important, I must say, is anytime you feel your anxiety is really getting out of hand, please, please, please seek help. Get somebody to talk to, even if you have to make an appointment with your GP, is really, really important.
Mhm.
That is how I put it.
Mhm.
Because we've all been impacted in one way or the other by
Yes.
this, and no matter how you cut it, we're still going to be impacted. But it's
Mhm.
important that we realize that it's important to take care of ourselves, the importance of taking care of ourselves. Yes.
Mhm. So I like the what you said, that the importance of taking care of ourselves. So it's like driving. You've taken the shot, you're wearing your mask, you're washing your hands and everything. But then you have a colleague who just insists on not taking the vaccine. This colleague insists on not wearing the mask because let's face it, we're all paranoid with this thing. And yes, we can see where maybe not everybody will, want to take the vaccine and all of that. But then you have those who brag about not taking the vaccine. They refuse to wear the mask. It's almost as if they're defying what we're all trying and working around, even though we don't want to. How do you deal with such a person? This is different from, oh, I forgot my mask. Oh, I didn't wash my hands. But when you have that one person who just refuses to do right by all of us, and at this point, it's against all of us, what do we do? You can only have patience up to a certain point. But in order not to cause commotion, tell us, give us a few skills with which we can do, because we'll definitely encounter those who won't take the vaccine and won't be quiet too. They just now have to broadcast about the fact that they're not going to take it and start coming up with some statistics. How do we deal with that? It's difficult.
Yeah, it is. It is really challenging, and I don't know if I have the answers to this, but I think it's important that we try to protect ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and we have the protocol that is in place that we have to abide by, right? Um, with such people, I don't think it's our place to really try and sit them down and point fingers at them and say, hey, you are this and this is what is going to happen and what have you,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
We need to let them know that, well, if they don't believe in these things, well, we do. I mean, you as a person, you do, and you're going to take the necessary precaution. So in this case, perhaps as much as possible, you may want to distance yourself from this individual because you don't want to create any issues or any problems, you know.
Right.
These things, I mean, they are real. We're definitely going to
Mhm.
encounter. You know, I remember I was having a conversation with a physician friend of mine in the U.S. and he was telling me about the fact that he doesn't believe in the vaccine, and I was blown away to hear that from a physician. But the argument
Yeah.
I was making as well, I will respect your opinion because we are all entitled to our opinions,
Our
right?
opinion. Mhm.
But I would take the vaccine anyway. Life is such that we are all creating our own paths, right? And
Right.
it's important that we try not to follow others, because the moment we start to do that, we'll be making a great mistake.
Mhm.
And that reminds me of something. You know, I was just thinking about this idea of him, Jesus Christ, when he was on earth, despite the miracles and others that he performed, the scribe, the Pharisees, and other things continued to ask whether he is the Son of God, right? Even despite
Right.
the examples and other things. So these things have been in existence since time immemorial and is always
Mhm.
going to be there. But the
Mhm.
question is, do we have to follow what people say or what people do? Or we follow the science as we know it, you know. So
Right.
I think we need to make that decision. And if there's somebody who is all over the place, refusing and talking, trying to discourage others, we need to toe that line, our line of the instructions that has been given to us by the doctors, the researchers, and also the public health experts. You know, that
Mhm.
is what we need to abide by.
Mhm. So, bottom line, at the end of the day, it all boils down to we being able to stand in our own truth, because what you're saying is that you can't be walking around trying to fight that person who has decided they're going to do what they're going to do, because what you need to understand is that that is that person's truth as well.
Hmm.
They have chosen the path that they've chosen.
Hmm.
So in order for you to stay sane and to be able to live your life on a daily basis with or without that person, you need to stand in your own truth and do what you need to do. Then the other question is, this new variant that is, they say is coming up, and well, I don't know if we're having a problem with that here in Canada, but is it the same precautions that we have to take in regards to that, even after we've taken the vaccines? Does it mean we'll be taking new vaccines, or I'm not sure if you know much in that direction, but I thought I'd ask that question.
Right. Um, okay. Like you rightly said, I'm not an expert in public health, neither am I a physician, but the little that I've read and I know, maybe I think I can share. The Delta variant, as we know it, originated, as we know, from India. And over the years, you know, we live in a world where, as a result of globalization, nothing stays at one place for a very long time. We all
Right.
move from one place to the other. And it's really, I mean, it took it devastated the country of India for quite a period. And in the States, for instance, right now, it's really taking a toll.
Yeah.
Dying. But the information that I'm gathering really speaks to the fact that more, I think the impact is more on those who've not taken the vaccine.
Okay.
Because some information reaching us really indicates that if you've taken the vaccine and other things, you also need to take the necessary precaution in terms of continuing social distancing, continuing wearing the mask, because right now we don't know the solution. We don't have the treatment for that. However, the vaccine prevents you, so far as we know, from maybe getting seriously sick, and also perhaps even prevents us from dying. Because the studies, the research that is out there right now indicates that people who die after being vaccinated, the number is just too small. You know,
Okay.
so at least there's some form of protection with regard to that. In Canada, do we have it? Yes, it's here. Is the numbers going up? Well, not as
As much.
as much as we had it maybe a number of months ago, but it's here, and we are being advised to continue wearing the mask and continue taking the necessary precaution. So it's
Mhm.
really important. Now the difference, they call it the they use the word variant. The word
Yes.
variant means it's a type of, the
Okay.
virus.
Okay.
This one, with this type of virus, the rate of infection is really high. It's higher than the previous one, and
Okay.
it's more, what do you call it? It's also, the impact is more serious than the other one. So
Okay.
the precaution is really necessary. It's really important. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So in your mind, and maybe from your experience, from your research, and all of that, do you think this particular COVID has come to stay? Just like how there's malaria and this and that, and we have to take shots for it. Has this come to stay where we sort of like, how they're talking about, we're going to need passports, like how we have the yellow fever card and all of that. In your studies and maybe in your research or in conversations with your colleagues who are in the healthcare sector, is there discussion about the fact that maybe this has come to stay?
I don't know. In fact, I think this perhaps may be a question that we can pose to a public health expert.
Mm,
The reason being that, we use the word pandemic. When we use the
right,
pandemic, that it
right.
means it's a crisis that hits across, right? And
Mm-hmm,
usually, what my understanding of pandemics and other things are, they hit for a period of time
mm-hmm.
and then it subsides.
Okay.
So we have the plague that hit the I think early 19th or early 20th century. No, I think early 20th century or something, where a lot of people died and that kind of thing. That was also described as a plague. That was also described as a pandemic.
Right.
So right now, what is happening, I'm not sure whether this thing has come to stay. But my understanding, I'm inclined to think that
Mm-hmm,
some aspects of it maybe may not be a pandemic,
mm-hmm.
but it will be. I mean, we would have it from time to time.
Right,
It's come to stay. It's an illness a virus that is going to be with us
right.
the rest of our lives. And perhaps as time goes on, we may get to know more about the mutation of this
Okay.
virus, and
Right,
maybe the necessary precaution in terms of maybe medication and other things may be developed that we may be able to combat it.
right.
However, it will still, I mean, the virus itself will still be around. That is my
Mm-hmm.
sense. I may be wrong. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, so, when we talk about it, somehow I'm beginning to feel like we're beginning to get it. We're beginning to understand it. We're beginning to know the basic things we have to do at our level, to sort of like precautions that we have to take to avoid catching the full blown thing. So, with going back to school, particularly, I mean, as adults, we understand what we need to do. But when it comes to children, children like to play. Children don't mind exchanging masks, you know, children like hugs and all of that. So I know you're not an early childhood educator. Today I'm putting you in all sorts of positions. But for the sake of teachers, sometimes I feel sorry for teachers who have little ones, right? Little ones who like to share their candy and like to, what should teachers of little ones, you're a professor of big people who understand. But the ones of little ones, for their own sake, I feel sorry for them. What are they supposed to do? Maybe you can tell them something. I know I have a lot of friends who are early childhood educators and often listen. What are some of the things they can do to combat their own fears? Because the children, it's not that they don't care, but they have to be children and everybody is their friend.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, as you were saying it, I was just thinking about a joke I read the other day about somebody talking about a child going to school and coming home every day with a different mask, and the mother asking him, I mean, the child about the mask and say, well, I mean, Johnny wanted to play with me, so we decided to exchange masks and those things. I think one thing that we have going for us right now, even though the research is turning out to be different, is the fact that the rate of infection among adults is different amongst children.
Right.
So when you look at even the vaccination and other things, they asking us, I mean, right now we know children between the ages from 12 upwards are those who are being vaccinated. And I think right now the research is out there, they're trying to conduct to see whether children could also be vaccinated. I don't know whether they've started. It could be maybe, but I don't know. So far as I'm concerned, I'm not sure about that. So the rate of infection among children is really low compared to adults, as I said earlier. So
Okay.
I think that that is one saving grace. The other thing is perhaps maybe the responsibility of the teachers, monitoring these kids when they go to the playground, when they interact with others and what have you. So I would think that the responsibility is on us as educators in terms of teachers and other things to make sure they monitor these kids on the playground, classroom, wherever they find themselves. Even though this may create more work for them, I think it brings some form of prevention. It helps, keep these kids from getting infected from one person to, I mean, the infection going around from one person to the other. That's my thinking. Yeah.
And what about the parents? What are the parents of these little ones? What are some of the basic things they can do? Sometimes we as adults think these 2, 3 year olds don't understand what's going on. But I find those little ones to be very, very sharp and can be quite, they grasp things easy. So how do parents, because it starts from home, how do parents, help their children understand what's going on without putting fear in them, right? How do we make it such that the children know that, like just like how we teach them to go potty, how do we talk to the children so that they understand what's going on? I know, what's funny, when I was in Ghana, there were these little kids with their little mask going to school, but the mask was under their chin, right? Because then again, the weather is so hot that, it almost suffocates you. But at least you know that the children get the message. So how do we help our children, the little ones, to sort of get the message?
Um, I think it's a matter of education. We shouldn't think that because they are 3-year-olds, they are 4-year-olds, they are 5-year-olds, or what have you, they wouldn't understand what is going on. There are some kids who may be asking why they have to. I mean, particularly kids in this part of the world, you tell them to wear masks, they will ask you why. And you'd have
Yes.
to explain it to them and let them know. So I think periodically making it a point of sitting with these kids and explaining the circumstances surrounding the wearing of masks. When they get it, nobody would even advise them. When they go to school, they'll make sure that they use the necessary precaution,
Yes.
right? So that is number one, teaching them the importance of wearing the mask. Number two, this idea of the personal hygiene, making sure you wash your hands on a regular basis. You touch something, make sure you wash your hands because you don't really know how you're going to be able to contract this virus. So when you educate, you have that, and also you show them that example. I mean, we say charity begins at home. So you let them, teach them to emulate you as a mother or a father in the home. And as they continue doing it at home and those things, they will get it. So I think there are a number of steps that we need to take in bringing these kids to that level where they will have that understanding and realize that, hey, even though I'm a kid, we are all in this together, and we need to make sure that we, each and every one of us, contribute towards protecting, other people. And even if you educate your kids well, when it gets to that point when they go to the playing field and somebody says, well, let's exchange masks. Somebody say, well, no, my mother said I shouldn't do it. They wouldn't be able to explain it well, but they'll say, my mother or my father said I shouldn't do it, so I'm not going to do it.
Right.
So those are some of the
That
strategies.
is very, very true, because I remember when COVID started and I went to visit a friend of mine, and she has a grandchild who's, I think, 3 years old. And I was trying to sit next to him because usually when I go, he wants us to play with his toys, build the train and everything. I sat a little close to him. He goes, no, 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 grandma, you have to sit a little far away. So this kid, and at first I didn't understand what he was talking about. And his grandmother said, yeah, they've been taught in school to show social distance. So that is where he's coming from. So what we're saying here is we shouldn't underestimate the intelligence of these 3 and 4 year olds and decide, oh, they're little, they're not going to understand.
Yeah.
We could make it a conversation piece
Mm-hmm.
with them
Mm-hmm.
so that we're helping from the smallest as we go back to school and all that, teach them about the sanitizer, the mask, their friends and all of that, and they'll get it.
Yes.
So Lord knows we've dealt with a lot. We've dealt with a lot during this COVID time, watching the news as people have passed away, sometimes spending too much time with the people at home. Not that we hate them, but we never really spend so much time with each other. You know, we're on top of each other. If you're not lucky, I know a lot of the mothers, the single mothers that we work with, struggle so much because some of them live in a one bedroom with their 2, 3 children and they didn't have the space to, and so some of us have taken in so much, right? But it also brought us close together, right? So it's like a two-sided coin. It also brought us together. So as we're going back, I know we're going to be dealing with separation anxiety. Some may be dealing with loneliness. As I said, some of the mothers that we deal with in our work are single mothers who are home trying to raise their children, and they have their own struggles after the children have gone to school and all that. So how do we mentally, how do we go through this? How do we make it without feeling like we're going to not make it? And this not making it thing is real. It is real. So how do we cope with it? We're talking mental health stressors.
Yes. Thank you. Where do I start? As you were sharing, I was just thinking about a few things. Now, COVID has really dealt a big blow to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Family members, loved ones, some have passed on, and others. And it's tough. It's difficult. So let me share this. Let me share a personal story, and then before maybe I try to see if I can respond to this question. So, for instance, my mother died just around the period last March. I mean, March 2020, just around the time where they were going to announce the lockdown, just around that time in Ghana. And as a result, because of the lockdown, I couldn't go to Ghana for the funeral. So as we are talking right now, there hasn't been the opportunity for me to really travel to Ghana to even for closure, right? So it's something that has stayed with you. But the question is, how do you cope with that? How do you deal with that? Personally, I've come to a point of saying that, realizing that this is how I'm coping with it. I'm looking at it in terms of, well, as human beings, we are going to move on at a point in time. So how do we deal with our existence on Earth? It's a bit philosophical, but that is okay. And that has really helped me to cope, right? So coming to your question in terms of, well, mothers, I mean, families at home and dealing with it and those things, people have looked at the opportunity, I mean, having to stay at home from two different angles.
Right.
Some see it as an opportunity, some see it as a hindrance, a border, or what have you. I've heard parents talking about the difficulty or the challenge of monitoring their children's homework. Children who get distracted when they are doing their homework on the internet or what have you, drifting from one section to the other and all those things. And then the anxiety of going back to work or to school and not knowing what the future holds, what's going to happen to you, our difficulties that we're going to deal with it, we're going to be dealing with. So how do we cope with these things? And I think it's important that we try to also, if possible, even talk it out, have a conversation with family members, talk to them, let them know how you feel and get the needed support. You know, because none of us is an island where we'd have to process all these things individually. So you can meet with your family members, let them know how you feel about these things and find ways of dealing with it. You know, single mothers, yes, the kids are going to be leaving home and you may find yourself by yourself. You may be by yourself and what have you. What can you do to occupy that time
Yes.
in the absence of the children?
Hmm.
Do you enjoy reading? Do you enjoy even knitting?
Right.
Anything you can do to fill that void will be
Right.
helpful. Because if we don't try to find ways of doing that, other things may come in, and perhaps if we're not very careful, the outcome may turn out to be negative.
Yes.
And if we try to interact and do all these things and none of them seem to be working, then perhaps would we want to talk to a professional?
Hmm.
It's necessary. So I think the more we get counsel, the more we engage in other things, the better the outcome, the better.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. So they, going back to you saying, um, can we talk to family members? So can we seek help from professionals and all of that? A lot of the groups that I deal with in my line of work, as in my charity, are a lot of people from um immigrants. Let's just put it that way: immigrants from all walks of life, right? Who by I don't even know if it's culture or whatnot. Many of us are taught to keep things to ourselves, to keep to ourselves, to not reach out when we're needing help. And I often say, you can't do it this way. Yes, this is when we were back there, but this is where we are now. And sometimes I forget that the mere fact that we're in a new country is another thing that we have to deal with. But maybe them hearing it from a professional such as yourself would help a bit, because I'm always, as you know, I'm always looking for ways where I can bring a little hope to the work that I do, to these women who have become afraid. A lot of times they are with men who they themselves are afraid, but don't know how to deal with it. So help me help them, by saying it again, saying it in your own professional way, why it is a necessity. Nobody's going to hurt you, but why it's a necessity that we reach out to somebody and ask for the help that we need.
Thank you. And you are right. We all come from different cultures, particularly those of us in the diaspora. We
Mm-hmm.
come from, so I may use Ghana and West Africa perhaps as an example, but we all come from different parts of the world, and we are here, and we are part of the melting pot in Ontario, Canada, and even the Western world. Um, the challenge that we face is the fact that in our culture, I mean, a lot of us growing up, we didn't even know the need of talking to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
What we knew, at least some of us, what we knew is if you have any issue, just go talk to your pastor.
Mm.
And I'm not really here criticizing pastors, but some of the pastors, yes, they are great and what have you, but some of them do not have the counseling skills or the ability to really counsel professionally. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
them, the focus is more on the Bible, which is great, and I really agree with that. But we need to go beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And those are some of the experiences that we haven't had. And in being in this part of the world, a lot of us, we become extremely cautious telling
Yes.
others what we are going through. The fear that perhaps maybe if I tell A is going to tell others and they're going to gossip about me and they're going to be all out there in the community. So I might as well suffer alone. And
Mm-hmm.
also in our culture, a lot of us being taught that anything that we deem negative, mental health, for instance, is deemed a negative issue, and those things
Mm-hmm.
should not be broadcasted. We shouldn't tell others. We need
Mm-hmm.
to keep it to ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
also in our culture, talking about something like mental health, there is also the stigma that is associated with it. So with all these things, what we would rather do in this part of the world is that we'll keep it to ourselves and suffer in silence.
Mm-hmm.
Even in marriage, there is this abuse,
Right.
partner abuse and other things that go on. And it's in
Mm-hmm.
some families, it's been going on for years, but we don't want
Yes.
anybody to know because
Mm-hmm.
maybe people will perceive us differently or think
Yes.
that we are weak or what have you. And as a result, we wouldn't want to. But one thing I want to say is that it's important that we don't suffer alone. It's
Thank you.
important that we reach out, because what happens is that let me use mental health as an example. With mental illness, if you start developing the symptoms and you realize that perhaps these are things you can't cope alone, the earlier you seek help, the better. Because
Yes.
early intervention really helps a great deal. If you
Mm-hmm.
wait till the condition really gets super worse, I don't know if there's anything
That,
like super worse, but if it gets worse, treatment and other things may take longer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important that we try to feel comfortable having these conversations. And I must say that some of us, we are around and we feel comfortable talking about these things, mental health issues and other things. That it's important that we reach out. We'll be more than willing to share the little knowledge that we have. Even abuse in relationship. No
Mm-hmm.
relationship is perfect. Let me put it out that way. None of us, because we are human. And the mere
Yes.
fact that we are human even makes it an imperfect institution. It's only
Mm-hmm.
God, to the best of my knowledge, it's only God who is perfect. So
Yes.
what happens is if you find yourself, things are not working out very well, it's important that we get a little bit of help. And any time I remember talking about issues relating to relationship, I always remember this guy, they used to call him America's pastor. I think they call it a Saddleback Church.
Right.
What's his
I
name?
forgot his name.
Just blanked out on his name. But what he said something that really touched me the other day. He said he and his wife, what they do is every year they meet with a counselor for a tune-up in their relationship.
Mm, mm, mm,
And I think if each and every one of us will make it a point to get some
mm-hmm,
form of support with regard to our
mm-hmm,
relationship, it
mm-hmm.
will work out well. We don't have to wait for the problems and other things to fester before we say, hey, we need to seek help. If you're not very careful, by the time it gets to that point, it's too late. There are
Mm-hmm.
people who are killed in relationships. There are
Yes.
people who are maimed in relationships. But I think we can do something as a community to avoid that. And that is trying to seek help. And there is help available. We are fortunate to be here. And there is help available. And the earlier we do that, the better.
Mm. That leads us into the next time you come on. We're going to talk about relationships and figure out which way to go with every little situation, because it's like towards the end of this, you hit on something that we all need, that we're all not perfect. And relationships can be mended, can be worked on without each one of us maiming each other. But before we go, I'd like to read this poem, which speaks to our weak and our strong side. And it says, before I became strong, I knew what it was like to be weak. How difficult it is to love yourself, to find the wholeness that you seek. Before I knew the light, I have had my fair share of darkness too, where my world fell into a hopelessness and I didn't know how to get through. For I have known the tears it takes, the courage to stand up again. When you are broken down and bruised and you know nothing but pain, you forget to appreciate love. If you haven't seen the hate till you forget the meaning of smile and laughter, and your heart is left a beat. I have known the strength and courage it requires to get it right, to face the things that hold you down and hold your head up and fight. Before I was who I am now, I was someone I didn't want to be. I was lost, battered, and defeated before I knew how to be me. And in speaking about relationships and the fact that people can be killed, people can be hurt, and all that, I thought I'd bring this in for us to understand that we're only human, but we can also seek the help that we need to be who we are. Prof. Magnus Mfoafo McCarthy, thank you so much for being there for us. We will see you soon to discuss more topics. And ladies and gentlemen, stay blessed, be encouraged, be inspired. Make sure you share and like our videos, and also go to YouTube and subscribe. Stay blessed.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Prof.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the poem.
Brilliant. Really
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You take care. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for a TV platform to advertise your products? If so, you've come to the right place. We're proud to be the platform of your choice, and customer satisfaction is our #1 priority. Let our television platform help you advertise your product and services. No matter where your prospective clients are, we have the media resources to reach them. We offer the most affordable prices and a trial will convince you. So, contact us now and find out why so many local customers come to us for all of their advertising needs. Contact us at 416-835-3133 or email us at dork2@gmail.com.
That TV.